Well, the former American Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, was a strong critic of Donald Trump, even before many others jumped in, and he joins me now live from Washington. Welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Great to be with you.
The RNC chair denies that there's any rift. He says all is well within the Republican Party. Is it?
I don't think so, and I think that there's a reason for that, and many of the people that I know are deeply concerned about Mr. Trump's statements. And words count in politics and in life. Words really matter. And there was a famous jurist who once said that words are about the skin that we give to our naked thoughts. And it's the thoughts that worry me and a number of the people that I know, namely what Mr. Trump says and what the impact would be, not only domestically, but from my perspective, internationally. And his comments about degrading the importance of NATO, of calling into question whether or not we would come to the rescue of any treaty partner of ours, his demeaning of Senator John McCain's sacrifice, the parents, Gold Star parents most recently. Those are all things that should deeply trouble many Americans, and I think they do.
He's backpedaling somewhat on these allegedly sarcastic comments that he's made about ISIS and linking ISIS to President Obama somehow. But it's this sort of rhetoric which is causing some Republicans to call him potentially dangerous. How dangerous is he? Is he dangerous to the Republican Party? Is he dangerous to the American people or to America's standing in the world?
Well, it's difficult to try to really discover what his intentions are, but I think we have to stop trying to associate him with being the Delphic oracle and looking to interpret his ambiguous statements. I think these are distractions, whether they are off-the-cuff comments or deliberate distractions. They are distracting us from the big issues. For example, what would be Mr. Trump's policy in dealing with Russia and Turkey in terms of their new budding friendship as such? What would he do different in terms of what is being done now in fighting ISIS? What are his recommendations in coming to grips with international terrorism? So there are a lot of policy decisions which need to be addressed, and yet here we are having our attention diverted, talking about what did he mean? Did he really mean that we should take physical action, violent action against Secretary Clinton under the Second Amendment? Well, he said that was a misconstruction. Did he really mean that President Obama is a supporter of ISIS or a founder of ISIS? I think these are all distractions, and we ought not to keep focusing upon them, but rather say, Mr. Trump, let's talk about policy. What is your recommendation as far as how we make NATO more effective? What is your recommendation in terms of getting President Putin to get out of Crimea? What do you think about the Minsk agreement that President Putin signed with the West? These are issues which really need to be discussed. We're talking about what did he intend, what was the language that he used, and I think we're being pulled on rather trivial pursuits instead of the real substantive issues that are important to the American people and to the world.
Interesting that you mentioned NATO there. You would have, of course, in your time as a defense secretary, have had huge dealings with that military organization. What do you make of Trump's seemingly pivot away from NATO and towards Russia? I mean, the Clinton campaign have been very, very vocal about this and how dangerous it is. Are you concerned about that in particular?
Oh, I am indeed. NATO is one of the most successful military political institutions that we've ever had. It is responsible for helping to maintain security, stability, not only in Europe, but also in contributing to the effort in Afghanistan, Iraq, elsewhere. And so to simply say, well, perhaps the time has come to revise NATO or to limit the capabilities or limit the participation of some of the members who are now behind in their dues, so to speak, that's undermining the stability, in my judgment, of European security as well as American security. And it's something that is just kind of an offhanded remark. And that's why it's very important that anyone running for the highest office in the land needs to take care with the words that he or she uses. And that's fundamental or elemental for me.
So effectively, are you saying that he's not fit to be president? Is he qualified to be commander-in-chief?
I think that we have to judge him based upon the words that he uses and how he conducts himself. For me, the most important three characteristics would be information, knowledge, wisdom. I don't think he's demonstrated an interest in gaining information and certainly not knowledge on complex issues. And frankly, I think he would not serve our country well or be suitable for the office based on what he has said and how he's conducted himself to date.
I want to ask you as well about this growing rift seemingly within your party, the Republican Party. Some speculation now that federal funding, or sort of party funding, I should say, GOP funding, could now be moved away from Donald Trump and his campaign and put into congressional races instead. Now, Reince Priebus has sort of backpedaled slightly on that, but do you think that that's the case, that we could see this now rift in funding within the party?
I think those who are running for office today are very nervous. Republicans are very nervous that they will be pulled down by the kind of divisions that have been exacerbated during this campaign, the presidential campaign. And so we'll have to wait and see. The big donors have stayed away from Mr. Trump. And by the way, we have to remember that he said he was going to fund his own campaign. And so perhaps he's doing that. But in essence, I think the Republican Party is going to be faced with those key areas and key states that look like they may lose their seats, these candidates. I think the party will have to divert much more attention and resources to those senators.
You served obviously as Defense Secretary, but under Bill Clinton's administration. Would you support Hillary Clinton in November?
Well, I may. I'm not entirely happy with Secretary Clinton's positions on a number of issues, and I reserve that judgment, but certainly I could not bring myself to support Donald Trump.